Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to Chapter 8. As you can see, I screwed up on the schedule, um, and I skipped a week. So you guys kind of got a freebie, but we'll still get done in time. Just don't tell my boss, okay? I'm sure she knows about it already, so uh, I'm not worried. I'm covering all the material, and I'm not over making it harsh, and I'm not overly making it easy, I don't think. So it's a good challenge, I hope. So, chapter 8, um, conflict is something that we do every day. It's a part of everyday life. And some of you may argue about that. And many of you think of conflict or conflict resolution or bargaining, negotiating is, like if you're buying a house or buying a car or, something big ticket items and things like that. But really, it's to settle a dispute by discussion of mutual agreement between two. Um, and you can use mediation, or you can just the two of you work it out. Most people prefer without mediation. And be honest with you, more often than not, by the time mediation gets involved, things are pretty far gone. If you think about it, right now, anybody that you know that is using a mediator is probably going through a divorce, um, uh, closing a business, big things. And we prefer, mm, as we used to say, you don't want to air your dirty laundry in public. So we would like to, generally, people like to just take care of it between themselves. Um, every conflict, every negotiation has the trip concerns we talked about earlier. And I don't remember what chapter it was, one or two, two, I think. The trip concerns, remember, it's topic, relational, identity, and process. So anytime you get into a conflict or you're trying to negotiate um, between two people, you have to keep those four things in mind because the topic may not be what the problem is. It may be the relationship or the identity. So try to look at all of those things. And negotiation, like I said, is beyond big ticket items. You negotiate where to go have dinner. You negotiate what color to paint a room. You negotiate what car to buy. I got lucky last time. My wife said she wanted a blue one. She didn't get nothing else. She just wanted blue. I said, okay. Sometimes you don't have that. I wanted a pickup truck and she may have wanted a minivan or a Charger or a Camaro or something. So uh, we deal with bargaining and negotiation, and technically they have two different definitions, but they're the same. So this book considers them the same and interchangeable. And what do we have to do to bargain or negotiate something? There has to be engagement. You cannot negotiate with somebody that's not willing to negotiate. You need to have equal power, especially in a relationship, in an interpersonal relationship. You need to have equal power. One person does not need to dominate the situation. You need to have persistent communication. It can't be talking every now and then, and it can't be screaming. It has to be communication. And you have to be actively trying to solve a problem. You can argue all day long about something and never solve the problem. But bargaining and negotiating is about solving the problem, not just expressing your disagreement. Negotiation and culture. Culture is my favorite subject if I haven't told you that already. And each culture looks at things differently. it's situational. What is the situation that you're trying to negotiate? Some things it's accepted to negotiate, and other things it's not. I went and got a haircut the other day, and he cut my hair, and I said, "What's the price?" And he told me, and I gave him the money. I wasn't going to negotiate getting my hair cut, especially in the United States. Now you might somewhere else, but different countries have different things. Intimate relationships are very different than social relationships. In an intimate relationship, you have a lot to consider, especially if your idea is to continue the relationship. Most organizations have a top-down type of thing. The manager, the CEO, the manager in charge, and they have a ladder that you have to follow, organizational chart. But many of them are moving from top down to teams. And in that, they want this team to be working and have more autonomy. But oftentimes, they really don't know how to put that into place. Think about things that you can negotiate for and you don't. Buying a car. I knew this is how much money I could spend every month on a car, including my price, the insurance going up because I had a new car. So, this is what my budget is. And I went to buy the car, and my wife drove the car. They don't let me drive no more. But my wife drove the car, and the guy was, you look good in this car. This car's for you. And trying to be flirtatious and all that other stuff. Trying to get us, and he said, well, I know that you said you could afford, $600 a month, but the lowest I can get it down to is $650. And you have two choices. You can stick by your guns and say, no, this is what my budget says. Or you can be so enamored with the new car and the idea of it, it felt so good, it looked so good, that, well, I can do another $50. I didn't. I said bye and walked out. So when you are negotiating, especially in a win-lose situation like that, something big, you have to be willing to walk away. and like I said, it's okay to negotiate for a car in most places, but not a haircut. We have time to consider, monochromatic and polychromatic. And culturally, people view time differently. When I was in Peru, I was supposed to meet somebody the next morning. So I got up, I went and ran and came back and showered and all that other stuff. And I was having my breakfast and my coffee by 7 a.m. And this guy showed up about 10:30ish. And it was like, you said in the morning. And yeah, but I didn't say what time. So that was that culture. As far as the negotiation goes, monochromatic is negotiating of one thing at a time. Polychromatic is negotiating of multiple things. My only suggestion is you identify cultural differences before you start negotiating. I love culture, and I love going to other countries. But I like to find out about the cultural differences before I go. And sometimes it's nonverbal that could offend somebody. Sometimes it's words. So if you are going to be negotiating with somebody of a different cultural background, find out about their negotiation rules, so to speak, for their culture. Okay, what we need to do is deal with constructive argumentation. If you're negotiating, bargaining with somebody, in essence, you're arguing, but we don't want this to be an all out screaming, yelling, bitching type of thing. We want this to be constructive. So test the ideas, not the people. Yeah, there's a thing called ad hominem, where you attack the person. Uh, if you're going to get this done, you can't test or attack the person. Think about it. If you're in a bargaining with somebody and they're attacking you personally, is that going to make you more or less likely to work with them? And the same goes for somebody else. And another thing, when you're doing this interpersonal negotiation, emotion often overrules fact. I am pretty fact-based. My brother is extremely analytic. My sister is extremely emotional. I have to communicate between the two of them because my brother said these are the facts. My sister says, but this is how it makes me feel. And she don't really care about the facts. He doesn't care about how it makes her feel. So when you're dealing with this, you have to realize that oftentimes emotion overrules the fact. Now, my wife likes the toilet paper put in a roll a certain way. I don't care. If I push it one way and it doesn't come off, I'll push it the other way. But it bothers her. The fact is, toilet paper will come off the roll no matter which way you put it on there. But she gets upset if it's on the wrong way. Use persuasion, not threats. If you start threatening the other person, they will shut down. Think about it. Somebody starts threatening you, you don't want to work with them. You'll shut down too. Be respectful to the other. And require that you mandate they're respectful to you. I can put up a lot of stuff, but if we're negotiating with it, you're going to be respectful to me. You need to protect face for everybody. You need to protect your face. You don't want to be embarrassed or feel stupid. And you don't want them to feel that way. Be compassionate. Have an understanding of what's going on. I wish my brother and sister would read this chapter. Be compassionate for that person. You don't know what they're going through or how they perceive the situation. Reaffirm their competence. If they believe in something and they want something and they're passionate about it, reaffirm that they know what they're talking about. You may see it differently, but you want to reaffirm their competence. Don't cut people off. And as I've said a couple of times so far, if you put yourself in that situation and you don't like people doing this to you, don't do it to other people. If you're trying to get your point across to me and we're in class and I keep cutting you off, it's going to piss you off. Focus on equality. Yeah, sometimes you have a dominant and a submissive partner in a situation. But in reality, when you are trying to bargain, you have to focus on equality. And focus on shared attitudes. Our attitude is we want this relationship to work. Whether it be an interpersonal romantic relationship or a business relationship or buying a house or buying a car, we want it to work. They want to sell it, I want to buy it. So that's the ultimate goal. The thing is you don't want to spend too much and they don't want to take too little. Be interested in their view. Okay, you may not agree with them, but they have this particular worldview at the time. And you have to be interested in that. Be calm. When you get in a heated argument, you often say things you can't take back. You can't unring a bell. So you have to be calm and not rush through a bargain or negotiation. You can't you can't be angry and irate because you can't think straight, and you don't want to rush because I've had going back to that to a car dealer. Well, this, and they often say, well, somebody else is looking at this, and causes you to make rush decisions. Don't do that. Learn from your surroundings. You're all brilliant people. You wouldn't have got this far if you weren't. And you can learn how not to negotiate by watching TV, especially quote reality shows and political debates. Watch how people act, and you'll say that's not right. Facts are only relevant from your perspective. Going back to my siblings, my brother's responsible for my mom's money, and he needs to make sure that he doesn't spend it unwisely because it has to last her in her care. My sister, on the other hand, is the emotional support for mom. So my sister's like, well, I need additional help here, here, and here, and it's going to cost money. So do it. And my brother's like, mom has this much money, and I can't spend it this if there's a better way to do it. So the facts to each of them are relevant only from their perspective. And public and personal issues are way different. If you are negotiating with your significant other about something intimate in the relationship, it's much different than if you're trying to buy a car or if you're paying somebody to cut your grass. Approaches to negotiation. There's a lot of books written on this subject, and many prescribe win and lose, and or a series of compromises, in which case everybody loses something. But most of those are directed toward professionals, and odds are we aren't going to be professional negotiators or moderators. Some of you may have that as a target, and that's great, and you can get those books, but this textbook is more focused toward interpersonal and not or amateur and not professional negotiators. Competitive negotiation is not concerned about a future relationship. Now, think about that. If I'm in a competitive negotiation to buy a car, I'm probably going to have it for 6 to 10 years. Because once I get it paid off, I'm not going to want to get rid of it. And I'm not really concerned if I hurt this guy's feelings or not. I'm going to get what I want to get out of it. But if I'm in my relationship with my spouse, I'm concerned about tomorrow. I'm concerned about tonight when I close my eyes. I don't want to, wake up with a knot on my head. So in competitive negotiation, we're not concerned about the future of the relationship. Motivation is competitive. I'm going to get everything I can get. You have limited resources, and you are going to take as many of them as possible, or they are. Tomorrow's choices aren't affected. I don't have to come back to this guy tomorrow to buy another car. It's either or. It's either or. You're either I'm going to get what I want, or I'm going to walk away. It's either this or that. Either he's going to get what he wants, or I'm going to walk away. And in competitive negotiation, it's about win, win, win. I want to win, I want to win, I want to win. Managers are not always skilled at conflict resolution. You believe that? I mean, you've all had managers you were working for at some point in time, and they were all perfectly skilled at conflict resolution, weren't they? No, they're not. And oftentimes, they put up with things like undercutting or clicks or avoidance because they don't know how to negotiate a resolution to a conflict. They were hired because they are a great accountant or they're a great this or a great salesperson, not because they had great um, negotiation skills. Some of them do, but many times managers are they're just not skilled at it. And they when you go to a workplace, you put up with they put up with stuff that bother you because they don't know how to handle it any other way. Communication patterns of conflict negotiation strives to win. High opening. Any of y'all ever watch Pawn Stars on TV? You know, the guy comes in, he's got this is my coffee cup. How much you want for it? $5,000. Where'd you come up with that price? I don't know. It just sounded good. You know, they're going to walk in and say, this is what I want. Because they want to maximize their gains. They exaggerate the value of the item or the process or the deal. A house. They exaggerate what the value of that, even if they have somebody come in and do an assessment on a house, the assessment is never this dollar value. It's generally a range. And they're going to pick the highest end of the range because they want to maximize their gains. Communication, the patterns also often have threats, confrontation, and argumentativeness. Well, if you don't want to buy it, I'm sure somebody else does. We have another buyer come to look at this afternoon. If you don't get it now, many times they hide information. Yeah, this is a great house. The septic tank is 40 years old, needs to be replaced, but toilet flushers, I'm going to say nothing. And they manipulate and distort information to try to make it look like it's a better deal than it is. They resist persuasion. This is the way I'm going to do it. I'm the boss. This is my company. You take this job and you don't take it. I don't care. I'm not going to listen to you needing another $5,000 a year. And they're not concerned about relational goals. Competitive negotiation are not concerned about how this relationship is going, especially if they're the person in power, because they have the power. They're not going to lose the power. And I'll be here tomorrow. I'll still have my money. Doesn't bother me. Power interacts with gender. Women are generally oriented to the relationship, and men's are generally oriented towards status. Now, notice I use the term generally in there because I hate absolutes, and to me, there is no absolute as far as men and women are concerned. But culturally, men are power assertive and dominant. If a man is in our culture, United States, if a man has power, he's generally described as assertive or dominant. And if a woman shows those same traits that a man does, she's more often called a bitch. I don't agree with that, but that's what society often. I mean, two people with the same attitude, the same skill level, the same everything. But culturally, we say it's okay for men. But when you are in negotiation, it's best to have a combination of masculine and feminine skills. You need to be worried about, the power. You need to be worried about status, but you need to be worried about the orientation to the relationship as well. So don't force, jump up and down on one. Disadvantages of competitive negotiation. Well, first of all, it has a strong bias toward confrontation. If I am going to win, I'm going to confront you. If I'm going to be competitive, we're going to have a fight. It's non-responsive to, outside ideas. It's closed. It creates roadblocks. Instead of, negotiating for a job and them saying, I'd like this job, and you offered me the job. Right now, I'm negotiating salary, and 60,000 a year sounds fine, but the national average for this particular field, this particular position, is 65,000, and I could probably do it for 62.5. Because I know the economy in the area, da 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 da. But if it's competitive negotiation, nope, we offered 60,000. You don't like it? Don't take it. It's difficult to predict others' responses. If you have options available and you aren't so competitive, a lot of times you can see these are the options and kind of guess which way they might go. But sometimes it's difficult to predict if I'm laying it out, this is the way it is, if they're going to take it or not. I read a book one time where a guy lost a $30 million contract because he got overconfident. This is what I'm going to do. And they said, no, F you, we're not. And they walked. And oftentimes it creates overconfidence, especially for the dominant person. I'm the guy that's got everything. Oh, that it. So, integrative negotiation maximizes all interests. Integrative negotiation is what we want to do, not competitive. We want to maximize all the interests we possibly can. Parties have things in common and differences. So let's look at everything. Don't just look at this one thing that we're trying to negotiate. If there's a different way to get to it, let's do that. Creativity is the key. If you can be creative by looking at all the interests and all the things in common and all the differences and find something that is going to make you both happy, that's great. Common interests are valued in integrated negotiation. Interdependence is recognized. Not like where the boss says, it's my company, take it or leave it, take a hike. I need the job, you need somebody to do it. Let's work together. Resources may be limited, but oftentimes they can be extended by doing different things. Well, I can't give you the 62.5 that you're asking for, but we can give you, an extra so-and-so, extra day off a month, extra week of annual leave. We can cover your medical for your family as well as you. We have to realize that resources are mutual. There's only one set of resources and we got to share. And we have to come up with a mutually agreeable solution. Not what's going to make me happy, not what's going to make you happy, but something that makes us both happy. Now, this is a side note. It's not in the book. It won't be on a test, but it's something that came to mind while I was preparing for this class. I'm a Rotarian. Got my Rotary shirt on today. And in Rotary, we have what we call the four-way test. And anytime you go into doing something, working with somebody, making a decision, whatever, as a Rotarian, you're supposed to use the four-way test. The first one, is it the truth? The second one, is it fair to all concerned? The third one, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And the fourth one, will it be beneficial to all concerned? To me, that sounds like, the kind of negotiation we want. To me, that sounds appropriate. We want to have great mutual agreement. And maybe not these four things, but something like that. If you're going into something, set yourself up some standards and agree upon them. 7 elements of principled negotiation. Attend to the relationship. It doesn't matter if it's not a relationship, then you don't need to do principled negotiation. Attend to the elements of communication. Show respect. Allow them to have autonomy. You don't disrespect somebody. Don't pick on them. Don't yell. Don't scream. Focused on interest, not positions. If you want to have a good negotiation, focus on the common interest between the two of you. Generate as many options as you can. You know, brainstorming, we call it. You throw all the ideas out there you can. And then when you got all the ideas out there, when all the creative stuff is done, then you start sorting them. A is a column that we could definitely do. C is a column we definitely cannot do because it costs too much or whatever. And B is a column that, yeah, maybe. So you go sort down all your ideas, and then you take your A's and go over and look at these, and then take your B's and go through them one more time. Well, we could do that if we can't, and put them in A and C. Get rid of the C column. And then figure out what you're going to, excuse me, what you're going to do. Find legitimate criteria to avoid a win-lose situation. This is what I have to have. This is what you have to have. This is the goal. And both those meet the goal. Instead of win-lose. Analyze BATNA. BATNA. The best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Don't you love acronyms? We brainstorm, and this is our column A, and this is the best alternative we have to do what we want to do. Fair and realistic commitments. You have to have realistic commitments when you go into a negotiation, as well as whoever you're negotiating with. And you have to be fair between the two of you. Sometimes there's a difficulty in implementing core concerns. And the reason is because often the participants are self-centered. I want to win. It's about me. I'm important. Okay, but that's not what we're dealing with. Sometimes you have strong negative emotions. If you are in a relationship with somebody and you hurt them, they're going to have some strong negative emotions that you have to deal with. Oftentimes your brain is on autopilot. And I've mentioned this, I think, in this class. I know I have in my other class. And sometimes, instead of listening to the other person, you're on autopilot because you're finding out what I'm going to say next, not hearing what they have to say. Or this is the way we've always done it. Sometimes you're emotionally insensitive to the participants, either you or they are. If you're going to have a good negotiation, then you can't be emotionally insensitive to the other. And that's what goes on sometimes with my analytical brother. I don't care what her feelings are. Well, you need to. And oftentimes they have insufficient social skills. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. We learn these things by doing these things. And sometimes people have never had the opportunity to do it. Somebody was always making the decisions for them. Whether it be the dominant person and always winning and them always losing, or it may have been, the way they grew up, mom and daddy always did that for them. Mom and Daddy went and bought a car. Mom and Daddy did this. You know, I know this guy. Every house he's owned, his parents bought. Um, so some people just don't have the skills. We have to balance power, and balancing power relies on equal power. Integrative negotiation relies on equal power. You know, we can't have this power imbalance if we're going to try to do integrative negotiation. Sometimes, if you are the person without power, you got to step away. You know, they aren't balancing the power, and I can't do this. So maybe you need to go get somebody who's got more experience than you. Oftentimes, people in power they take shortcuts. You know, how many times politicians or entertainers sometimes they they don't face the same stuff you do because they take shortcuts. And the dominant person tends not to listen. I don't have to listen. I'm in charge. Why should I waste my time listening to you when I know what I'm going to do already? You have to have concern for the relationship, self and other. You can't go into this bullheaded if you want to do a proper negotiation. Uh, too much of any skill is never good. You need to balance dominating, compromising, and obliging and avoiding. Even if you are the dominant person, you can't fully go in there like a bull in a china shop. You need to balance stuff out. If you have any concern for the relationship, you can't be obliging and avoiding completely either. Because if you do, then you're not going to come up with a negotiated equal deal. Define your interest before you start negotiating. What is the thing that we are trying to come to? Let's figure that out before we start figuring out how to get there. I mean, think about it. You don't go on a trip if you don't know where you're going. So you have to define the interest before you start negotiating. Label the conflict differently. Find a way to look at it differently. Instead of saying, you hurt me, say, I'm hurt when you do so and so. Emotions should be genuine in negotiation. If you act angry and you're really not, they'll see through it most of the time, and you're not going to get anywhere. If you have what my mama used to call crocodile tears, they're going to see through it. You need to have genuine emotions. Use narrative questions. Don't say, are you mad? Say, tell me what happened. What's got you so angry? I understand it's talking differently often than you ever have before. But that's what you need to do. Because, you know, I say to my wife, what's wrong? Nothing. Okay. Let's see. Something's wrong. Nope, nothing wrong. And so figure out how to say it. Expand the pie when you can. The book has a pretty good example. One person wanted to go to the coast and the other person wanted to go to the mountains. So what they did was they went to the mountains on the coast, either Oregon or Maine, one or the other. Now the beach won't be the same, and the mountains won't be the same, but you both kind of get what you want. The disadvantages of integrative bargaining. It's biased toward cooperation. Remember what I said at the very beginning? You can't negotiate with somebody that's not willing to negotiate. Well, integrative bargaining is biased toward cooperation. It avoids confrontation. And I know earlier I've been saying, you can have a confrontational negotiation, and that's the dominant. But sometimes you need to have confrontation to be the catalyst for the problem. Have you ever watched two people that are trying to be too nice to one another? So you can't get anywhere unless you actually confront what the problem is. It focuses on being sensitive to others. That's a good thing. It is, but it's a disadvantage of integrated bargaining because sometimes people can't focus on being sensitive to the other people. My brother and sister, for a perfect example. She can't be sensitive to his concerns, and he won't be sensitive to hers. I don't know if he could or not. Value-laden goals make bottom lines more vague. This is what we want to do. Well, if we're really dealing with qualitative, value-laden stuff, a lot of times it's much murkier. We want to have $10,000 in the bank by the end of next year. That's a solid goal. But sometimes what you deal with to get there is more vague than that. Well, we won't spend more than such and such money on such and such unless it requires skills and knowledge. Remember earlier I said some people don't have the social skills to do it? It requires skills and knowledge. If you want to integratively bargain or negotiate with somebody, you need to know what you're doing. It requires strong confidence in the assessment of the other. And you know from earlier chapters that a lot of times they've said if what you think of the other is probably wrong. So you have to be strong and confident in your assessment powers and be right. This I know how to read this person. And the thing is, it's phases. You don't just use one type of skill. We talked way earlier about different styles of conflict management. You may use them all in a negotiation. But the idea is for the negotiation to be fruitful to everybody involved. So sometimes you have to use them all. I hope this wasn't too long and boring for you folks. I do enjoy teaching. I would prefer teaching in person, but that's not my wheelhouse at this point in time. So if what I've said is too confusing, and if it doesn't make sense, feel free to email me. I'm here and I'll help best I can. Have a great week.